Hi, I'm Hope Witkowsky, your host of Senior Scene. There comes a time in one's life when you turn 65 years and over, when you may be living alone. Whether you're a widow, a widower, or maybe you never got married. Maybe you are just on your own. Well, statistics show you are not alone. 1 in 4 seniors over 65 lives alone. On today's show, we're going to meet a couple of seniors who are doing just that, and you will be inspired by their stories. Judy Gibson lost her husband in 2017 after 50 years of marriage. She has amazing stories of their life together. Her husband, Richard, worked and she was the homemaker and doing all the things expected of housewives of her decade.
All the accolades go to my husband, Richard. When I met him, he was in graduate school at North Carolina State University and he was getting a PhD in plasma physics. Well, he said he was getting his doctorate, so I thought he was going to be a doctor, and I thought, oh, I'll marry well. I like him. Then he got a PhD. Okay. But that was our accomplishment. He did it, but I supported and worked for the state of North Carolina.
Judy never felt the need to go to work outside her home because in her extended family, it was always the husband who was the breadwinner.
We were in an apartment first with Richie. And then when we moved here, we bought a house on Denora Avenue here in Torrance because I wanted my children to go to Towers, Bertlin, and West High, and they did. And also, luckily, we didn't know where to buy, but believe it or not, my husband from Falls City, Nebraska, his high school football coach, was the coach at West Torrance High, Fred Peterson, famous coach. And so Coach Pete said, if you've got sons, get in the West Torrance area. Of course, I never would let him play football. I didn't want him to get hurt. We were kind of poor early on, and we did not have our son till we were married 5 years in Raleigh there. So golf was a big thing. Richard was a champion golfer, and I would go and watch him and then go shopping. I was a good shopper. And we did that, and we'd go to Nebraska to see his family. And pretty much all my family's in North Carolina, so we go see my family, and we just did normal things, movies, and not much travel because we were poor, but happy.
As time passed by, children entered the picture. This was when she realized she wanted to be involved in the community and support the children when they were in school.
We had a bunch, and we had a lot of fun. And so I was lucky to be PTA 17 years with my 2 children, and Richard worked and brought home the bacon, so to speak. And one of my dear friends, Heidi Ashcraft, who is now on the city council, Heidi and I did 17 years in PTA together. So all the friends I made through the school district and enjoyed it so much.
As a homemaker, Judy had decades of years in all the fun things that support her children's activities in and out of school. She was the ultimate school volunteer. The years passed now, and it was her 2 children's time to move out of their family home and start a life of their own.
Just the worst decade of my life. My children are 5 years apart, so luckily it was lengthy. I guess both of them have been out for about 20 years now. College and marriage, that sort of thing.
50 years into her marriage, her husband got the news that he would need a hip replacement. Nothing unusual. He knew it had to come with aging.
Richard had a hip replacement, had an issue, went back in, had to have it redone. And sadly, I don't know why, God took him, but he had an aneurysm and he died here in this house.
Since Richard's death, I wondered how Judy was adjusting to living alone. Has she made any changes? Did she seek any assistance from any groups, therapy, support? She confided in me that many of her friends had told her that they would continue their friendship after her husband's death, but that soon fizzled away. What she turned to for help was inspirational and so important for her well-being. It was a bereavement group at Trinity Little Company of Mary Hospital.
There were 14 of us and then the leader, and I went. After the first one, I cried through the whole thing because you hear about everybody's sad story.
Sure.
And I got in the car and I thought, I am never going back there. So Rich said, Mom, go one more time. So I did. And there are 2 men in there. I said one night, I said, well, the question was, what do you do for comfort? What is something? And got to my turn, and I said, well, I go to the happy hour at Doubletree Hotel. And after the meeting, 14 cars drove to the happy hour at the Doubletree Hotel, which was a wonderful thing. You go and you share experiences and what happened to your spouse. And it was mostly women, like I said. But it was interesting to hear from the 2 men, how they process. Well, I'm kind of bossy, so I kind of bossed everybody around to go over there, and now we do. And it's dwindled down some because that's life.
Yes.
But there's a core of us, and Wednesday night, and we don't invite anybody else to join us at that, just us.
It would be quite an adjustment for her and those around her.
Well, it's not easy, and then you get a lot of people giving you suggestions on what you should do and shouldn't do. Don't listen to them. Do whatever you want to do. Whatever makes you feel right is what you should do. I don't care what people say about me, you know. I don't care because I'm not doing anything wrong. But a lot of people are like, oh, Judy, you shouldn't go to a bar. Well, the happy hour bar at the Doubletree is not like a bar.
Right.
It's family.
Right.
And I don't know what I would do without that family.
Sure.
My husband would not want me to moan around.
Right.
And it's hard. It's not easy. But I'm not jealous of any of my friends who have spouses. I'm not jealous. I admire it, and they're lucky because you never know when it's going to end.
The adjustment to single living can be the most difficult at various times of the day. Judy has found a way to work through it.
The hardest time is at nighttime because, you know, we go out and have fun, do all kinds of stuff, and dancing and having friends, and we're a big Atlantic Coast Conference basketball fanatics, which is now it's a tournament. But I've always been kind of hyperactive a little bit. I just can't sit here, and it just makes you feel sad. So find something to do. I don't care. I'll walk in the mall because I do an exercise class.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I learned that from my mother.
Yes.
Mama was the first walker in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'd go home and we would walk, and I'd say, Mama, why are you walking the opposite way of everybody? And she said, well, because if you all go the same way, you can't say hey to everybody. Which is true, so I learned that from my mother.
Do you go before they open?
No.
You go when
I
they're
go
open.
when I know there are people there and the police are there, and I've gotten to know so many people there.
Yeah.
I like my mother, I just say hey to everybody.
Where do you start?
I start on the tippy top.
Okay.
Macy's, I go in Macy's on the tippy top.
Yeah.
Because you go in there, and I walk all the escalators in Macy's. Lord, that's a lot of those.
Wait, do you go opposite? Do you
Yeah,
walk up and down?
Yeah, I do.
That's great.
And it is fun because I made so many friends, just acquaintances.
Right.
And then I do every level, and then I go back up top and get in my car and go home. It's a blessing. It really is.
One of the most difficult things a survivor has to do is downsize and sort through the remaining items of their loved ones. Judy has a different feeling about doing this task on the 1-year anniversary of her husband's death.
It's kind of like freeing. It's freedom from grieving so much in every aspect of my life and in my home. And I knew Richard would want me to do that. And I didn't want my children to think I was just living on memories, you know, clothing memories. Although I do with the Nebraska stuff, but that's a happy one.
Yes.
So I thought, and then it would help someone else. And I still don't have much in his side of the closet. I hesitate to put my clothes in there. But it's something I would never tell anybody what to do.
Right.
You have to do it what you feel.
Sure.
It was freeing for me from deeper grief. That was a hard part because I just left everything the way it was for a year. And then one day I thought, you know, beautiful clothes. Richard had nice clothes and different things. And so I got most of it together, not everything. I got most of it together because I thought there's so many other people could use this. And I gave them to a little company, Mary's shop. Thrift shop, thank you. Over on Torrance Boulevard in Hawthorne, Anza, Hawthorne. And I felt good about that. However, Richard was from Nebraska. He was born in North Carolina, but his mom was from North Carolina. But he was a Nebraska Cornhusker fanatic. That's where he graduated college and then got a PhD at NC State. So we have so much Nebraska clothes. I did not get none of the Nebraska stuff. And he has a necktie that Brock got him in Thailand. And there's no way I was getting, just stuff like that.
Yeah. What did Judy have in mind of where she now wanted to live? Was it still in this big home or move closer to her family?
It's so hard because, I mean, almost 50 years.
Sure.
I never lived alone in my entire life because I lived at home with Mom and Daddy and my brothers and my sister. Then I went to college and I lived with a roommate. And then I went to Raleigh, North Carolina to work for the state of North Carolina and had a roommate. Then I met Richard and had a roommate. So this is a new experience.
After looking at her life in Torrance, she is close to making a decision.
You know, now that I'm growing up, it scares me because I love Torrance. I say I got a free education from the city of Torrance. Richard worked and paid the bills, and I volunteered endlessly and learned so much from the school district, the city, and I still get to do that, and all the nonprofits. So I got a free education, and I'm not going to stop it now. And I'm blessed to be still a pediatric therapy network. All the little children there, and they're outstanding. And of course, the little company Mary and Trinity Hospice, and just it goes on and on and on. But I do think about
downsizing.
Well, where would I go? And Torrance is so expensive.
That's true.
As you probably read in the Daily Breeze about rents going up, and that poor lady at the YMCA only makes $14 an hour and she can't find a place.
Right.
So it's creepy.
Yeah, that's the truth. So you have stability here in the house. So,
yes, even though I'm kind of lonely in this big old house. I think it's big, but it has great memories.
Judy is one of many who live alone, having outlived their spouse. Jerry, on the other hand, decided he would stay a bachelor as long as he could. His solo living by choice may seem lonely, but Jerry has a different story to tell. He graduated high school when he was 18 and was drafted into the Navy soon after that. That was in 1944.
I was born in Fort Pierre, which celebrated its bicentennial this year, Fort Pierre, South Dakota. The oldest town in South Dakota. Little town, about 700 people.
Wow.
Drafted with a boy that I had grown up with, and older boy with, and we went through the physical thing, get into the service, and then they asked us our choice of service. Cecil said Navy, they said Army, I said Navy, they said Navy, and Cecil was dead 6 months later.
After the war, Jerry thought he knew what he wanted to do for his life career.
I was going to be a pharmacist. I was going to be an artist, and then I found that a lot of artists were starving. So my brother owned a drugstore that all of us boys had worked in during our high school days. And he had bought the drugstore. He was back from the service. So I was going to be a pharmacist. And then about the day I enrolled in college, I decided I didn't want that. So I ended up a school teacher. I went to Creighton in Omaha. And that was a great period of my life.
This bachelor was not looking for a different place to do his career and did something that takes a lot of courage.
I bummed around by myself, you know. I got a one-way ticket to Europe on the Queen Mary, and I didn't have any reservations or plans. I did a day at a time, you know. I came to Torrance High School, I was 29, stayed there 37 years.
Wow.
My friends talked me into retiring. I didn't want to retire because I was really enjoying what I was doing. But I retired, and retirement was for the birds. when you retire, everything in your life changes, beginning with your time of getting up in the morning, your wardrobe, your eating habits, your use of the time. Everything changes.
What got you into this mode of how you wanted to live your life solo without, having a wife or having kids?
Well, I pursued the things that were interesting to me. Made many friends that way. Kids at the high school filled a big part of my life.
Do any of them still contact you?
Yes, I've gone to many weddings and weddings of children of students, former students. But I think it's important to be engaged in things. After, as I say, after you leave work, the working world, you're cut off from the people that you worked with. You're suddenly adrift. So get involved. They say that sitting is the new smoking. And get out of the house. Do things that you've always wanted to do.
Here is another amazing element of Jerry's single life that you might find amazing, but it sure kept him in tip-top physical shape.
I don't know, I just sort of put off. It's like buying an automobile. I never bought one, never owned one. Day by day, it wasn't missing in my life. I grew up in a big family that was very close and excellent relationships that went on until they died.
We can see how Jerry feels about being a couch potato. He has mottos that he'd like to pass on to all seniors.
Many people retire, they get a recliner, and they spend their days in that with a television screen up here. And I don't have a recliner, and I don't spend much time in front of the television. Get out and do things. Take a morning walk every day, for starters. But pursue the things that you enjoy. Someone said you can't fish 8 hours a day, and you can't play golf 8 hours a day, and you can't make love 8 hours a day. And I think it's important that you get engaged. You make a new set of friends. And the people that you meet in volunteer work are the cream of the crop.
Another one of Jerry's projects involves Students in Government Day. He works through reading thousands of essays, students of which only 7 will be picked to pretend that they are a Torrance City Council member, and they actually sit in the council chairs and pretend they are working on an item of the agenda.
The tabs are the ones that struck me as being better ones in the group. Then I go through the tabbed ones and pick out the 5 best for that particular school.
Jerry and Judy are perfect examples of seniors living independently, whether by choice or by life circumstances, and they are making the most of it. Britt Huff is an executive director of HELP, which stands for Health and Elder Law, which is a nonprofit organization in downtown Torrance, and she gives some important recommendations of ways to stay engaged.
Many times that results in people becoming depressed, and so it's sort of a mushrooming effect in that they're grieving, they become depressed, they don't want to be around other people, and so we feel it's important for them to be aware of that and to try to break that cycle. We generally see more women in that condition because there are more women who, widows and widowers generally of the population. And I think women are generally a little more aware and, do come and seek help more than men, although I think women traditionally have had more relationships, social networks outside of the family and outside of work, and so you often find men who have retired and then lose a spouse have less of a tendency to reach out to others because they haven't had to traditionally do that. Well, someone who's been single all of their life, of course, has an advantage over someone who's been married and then loses a spouse, because that's a dramatic change for them, whereas someone who's lived a single life has become much more adept at doing things, being outgoing and reaching other people. So normally we don't find as much of a problem with people who've, it's been a life experience for them.
Torrance has so many ways to keep seniors engaged in the outside world.
I think the city of Torrance in particular has been very good about that. As you know, the little corner that we're located on in Old Torrance, we have the Bartlett Center, we have Focal Point, and then we have Coleman Court, senior housing across the street, and the city provides through their senior centers wonderful opportunities for people to get out and to get involved. So that's very good. I sort of see Torrance as a model for other cities. Most cities do have some sort of senior programs now, as I think the governments are becoming more aware of the need to support our aging population. We also, in terms of our interactions with people that come through the doors and just out in the community, we see that the churches have traditionally always done a very good job. Probably, traditionally more than governments, and the governments are kind of stepping in and helping to fill a gap. But so many of the seniors that I talk to that are adjusting well to living alone and the solo living are people who have some connection with their faith community. And so even some of the bigger churches, their focus is more and more on small groups where people have a chance to make friendships and relationships. So many times I will encourage a person to, even if they're a shut-in, to call, look on the internet or look in their telephone book and find a church and just say, I'd like to become involved.
Learning what happens to survivors in a marriage or seniors who have always lived independently may surprise many.
Many other research projects that have shown there's a direct connection between people who are socially active and have those interpersonal connections and retaining cognitive ability, and that people who are isolated and get depressed have much more of a tendency to develop dementia and even Alzheimer's. So, those of us who age want to make sure we have all of our faculties until the end, and so I think that would be an encouragement to get that information out.
The services that HELP provides is free. Located right in downtown Torrance makes it a wonderful service for all who have so many questions now that they find themselves alone.
Yes, and that's an important aspect of our programs and services. We're an education and counseling center for seniors and their families. So we have people walk in that have many times in crises and need help. But our educational program, we do community classes that we partner with libraries and senior centers and so forth throughout the South Bay. And an important part of that is encouraging people to prepare for the aging process. And that is, getting your documents in order, talking to each other, finding out this information, where's the money, and, setting up the paperwork that you need to make a safe and careful transition.
Wow, that is amazing. I hope today's show inspired you to get outside the doors of your house. Look at things that you could do that are really, really a lot of fun. Stay engaged in the worlds outside the doors of your house. I'm Hope Witkowsky reminding you, knowledge, it's a powerful tool. Tune in to Senior Scene next time for more secrets on successful aging.